Okay, welcome back. Sorry to keep you waiting. I know we're running a couple minutes behind schedule here while we work through a couple things. But I hope you all had a fabulous lunch and found dessert over in the room next door. Our next session is the Race to AI, Considerations for Successfully Landing AI Within Your Organization and Your Role. And we've got two experts here with us today, Eric Braun of Farm Progress and Emily Hitch of Broadhead. Each of these individuals has led the adoption and integration of AI in their respective companies and will share their approach, learnings, and perspective around this. The way we have this structured is that we'll first hear from Eric Braun, and then Emily Hitch will follow with a presentation, and then we'll sit down and open it up for Q&A there at the end. So first, as Senior Executive of Content at Farm Progress, Eric has worked in digital publishing for over 25 years. Previous roles include digital editor for several newspapers, including the Houston Chronicle, San Antonio Express News, and Austin American Statesman. He likes to bike, is a Kansas City area native, and now lives in the Woodlands, Texas with his wife, Amy. Please help me give Eric a warm welcome.
All right, it's nice to see you all here. I do love to bike. Rogers is amazing. I love this place. I've already been telling my wife we're looking to move. Let's see, go. Yeah, that's me. Now it's not going. Do I point it somewhere else? There we go. Oh, now I need to go back. Okay, so this first quote here is from Amy Webb. She is a futurist. Every year in Austin at South by Southwest, she gives a big presentation about the future trends she sees in technology. She's terrific. She's brilliant, and you know she runs this company. It's the Future Today Institute. And every year after this, they release this document. This year was 1,000 pages long. It's a 1,000-page deck. My presentation is going to be much shorter than that. But this quote, I think, really kind of tells the story of where we are right now with AI. How exactly will AI reshape our world in the coming months? The honest answer is nobody can know, right? Anybody who tells you they're an expert probably isn't. At this stage, avoiding costly mistakes and smart planning for the future matters more than predicting exact outcomes. Leaders need a strategic, and I would add an ethical compass, not a crystal ball. So we see a lot of challenges coming with AI, and we're trying to plan for those. You know, we certainly expect to see a flood of AI-generated copy, filling social platforms, and maybe some very eager corporations might also use AI beyond what it should be used for. Politicians, misinformation spreaders, and that's just going to cause a general spread of mistrust of the media. Consumers already don't know who to trust, right? They have doubts about who has their best interest at heart. Agreed upon facts, few and far between. You just don't see, agreement on facts, which is a problem. And then there's, legal liability, right? You can be sued for, if your AI tool is taking copy from someone else, and vice versa. So, Google's currently probably has half a dozen lawsuits on them from content creators. The biggest problem we're seeing right now is with the Google AI overviews. They're pushing search results down, so we're seeing a precipitous drop in impressions coming from Google. Users who encounter those AI overviews that sit at the top of the page and push the organic search results down, they're clicking on, and this is according to a Pew Research study from March, and it's probably much worse now, but they were clicking on links 8% of the time versus 15% of the time with no overview. So basically they've chopped it in half. Summary links have fared worse. They're getting clicked just 1% of the time. Now, when that box shows up, those are the source links that are off to the right. Those are getting almost no clicks. Google, when they were trying to, make us feel better about that as media companies, they said this was going to be great. It's going to click like 40% because it's so prominent. Obviously, not the case. 26% of the time, users in their browsing session, they've got the information they need, so they're just walking away and closing their browser and going and doing whatever they were looking for information on. And that's versus 16% of the time when there is no AI overview. So again, a big drop in potential clicks to our websites. One of the things that we know is that searches that involve questions and full phrases and just like more lengthy searches, people just don't search for a single keyword. Like they're not just searching for soybeans, they're not just searching for corn, they're searching for like, how do I get rid of tar spot, right? So that's how people are searching. Because they're searching, looking for answers, those end up getting an AI overview. Also, Google loves using AI, but they don't want us to use AI, right? They're putting these AI overviews on more and more pages, but they're telling us that we're going to be punished if we use too much AI on our websites. I don't like Google, just in case that's not clear. And that's leading to the rise of the clickless search. So essentially, they're building content on their sites and gathering content in a way that is keeping people from clicking off and clicking to anything. So it's just like, if you remember, Facebook used to be about equal with Google sending traffic our way. They dropped off years and years ago, but we're starting to see the same thing with Google, where they want to keep people on their website. Google Discover can help. The problem with Google Discover, which is it's like the homepage on their devices, and there's an app, the Google app on iPhones. That can drive a tremendous amount of traffic. The problem is it's way up and down, it's hard to monetize, and it tends to be more consumery. I did want to, even though I badmouth Google, you still need to be on Google. SEO is still very, very important. Don't want to tell you otherwise. So the way we're fighting this is through using AI and other tools, right? So we're finding our core audience, we're nurturing them, whether that's in newsletters, whether it's meeting people at our events, having an AI policy, right? We're leaning into our journalistic ethics as well. We're having an AI policy, we're creating an AI policy, we'll communicate it. Trustworthiness is what makes us distinct, right? People know they can trust us. We've had a marketing campaign for the last several years about just introducing people to our editors who are out in the field. We use AI as a tool, not for writing complete stories. We tell our writers to connect with their audiences, to be real. We use social media as a connection point, not a traffic driver. Like I mentioned, Facebook doesn't really drive traffic anymore. The strength in social media is to drive brands. And personal brands. And then we emphasize the things that AI can't do. Show the humanity of your subjects. I thought Sean made a really good point of that earlier today, and then in the smaller session. And not only tell the story of the subjects of your stories, but also yourself, right? If you have a column, show your humanity. And then look for the details that AI would miss. And kind of going back to another thing Sean said, was talking about sports writers. Think about a box score, right? AI can generate a story off of a box score, but it can't tell you, what was great about a beautiful double play, or was there a brawl, or, all these other things that make a baseball game truly interesting. Those are the things on the farm, you can find those kind of details to report on. And then when we're actually creating content, we're using AI as a brainstorming partner, working with it to, in our tools, we call it Elysia, named after the Elysian Fields. I don't know why. But the tool, we'll just have conversation with it, right? I'll give it a concept, and it'll give me ideas back. I use a lot of open-ended prompts, so I don't tell it what to tell me. And then I'll ask it to create a story structure, right? So give me an outline or bullet points or even a listicle. Suggest headlines and subheads, that's nice. That's a good way to make yourself a little more efficient. It can suggest where to add subheads to break up your story a little bit. Subheads, very important for SEO. And then SEO headlines and subheads. That's a great way to use AI, because it will, we ask it to write these headlines in a way that scores well with SEO tool rankers. So it's pretty darn handy. And then for interviews, kind of the same thing, brainstorm questions, talk to your AI tool, and then use AI transcription tools. A lot of people use Otter, I know. We do too, to some extent. And then you can take that transcription, drop it into your AI tool. It can summarize interviews. One of our reporters recently, Andy Christian, talked about how he tells it to find the best quotes. And then he uses a timestamp to go back and verify that quote, because it's really important to verify these sorts of things with AI, because sometimes it hallucinates a little bit. And then for fact checking, it'll do a good job with fact checking, right? But one of the things I do is I tell it not to use Farm Progress as a source, because I don't want it fact checking against ourselves. I want it to go out and find other ways to back these facts up. And accessibility, is what I'm writing is it good for the intended audience? Will they understand it? Does it match what I want to hit? For data analysis, we'll upload a data set. And I don't write a lot. I'm more writing reports, so I'm using a lot of Google Analytics data. So on a spreadsheet or a CSV file, what you're going to do is make sure your data is really well formed, knock out headers and all the other junk. Use only the data that you want to get analyzed and drop that into your spreadsheet. Keep it simple and focused. Make very specific requests. It needs to know exactly what you want, or it'll kind of go afield. It's great at picking out patterns from your data, and in these massive data sets that we would have to spend who knows how long understanding, it can knock that out in minutes. And then ask for a visual representation of the data. That's a good one. You can hand that to your graphic people if you have them, or if it's good enough, you can use it and you don't have a graphics team. Just use what AI gives you. And then one of the real keys is getting good at prompt engineering. Be specific and clear. Give the relevant context around the why of what I'm asking for. You can tell it exactly how you want it to put out, right? Define those expectations, whether it's length or style or structure. Give it a process, right? I want you to take this set of data, compare it to another set of data, and then give me a final report on what you find. And then you can attach an example. I'll do that if I'm writing a report. If I wanted to mimic something that's really good for execs to read or something like that, I'll attach that and tell it to mimic it. Specify your audience. Obviously most of our audience here is farmers. I'm writing to our editors. Sometimes I'm writing to our execs, so I'll do that. Request iterations. When you're asking for headlines, ask it for lots of headlines. Then you can also ask it for various audiences, right? Whoever your target audience is. And then tell it who you are, right? I'm writing this as an agricultural journalist. Or if you want to write it from a farmer's perspective, say, as a farmer, I want to know this. And then ask open-ended questions. Let your AI be creative. So this is a report I've been doing. It's Alicia again. I do a monthly report. And this is from the previous month. It's essentially, I'm just taking the top 500 stories from the previous month. I take that in a CSV file. I chop out all the pertinent information, not the pertinent information, all the extraneous information. And then I give it, this is the actual prompt I use. I tell it to look at the source file. I tell it the metrics I want it to analyze, the views, the engaged sessions, and engaged time. Then I want it to tell me the themes. What's it seeing in those data points? What is important? What is going to work? And sometimes I'll tell it to emphasize one specific thing. I'll say, hey, I really want to know about the views on this. And then the open-ended part of that prompt is any other insights, right? Give me kind of what you think, Alicia. And then I always add an executive summary on the findings, just so there's something for people to read. And I will leave you with my golden rule for using AI. Remember that AI wants to please you. Sometimes that means it's going to take liberties to satisfy your request. Trust but verify, right? Anyway, and that's from me, some guy who's not a futurist.
Thank you, Eric. Now I'd like to welcome Emily Hitch to the stage. Emily has always studied systems, how people connect, how cultures evolve, and how ideas take hold. Her study started with getting anthropology degrees from Yale and the London School of Economics, and then took her across continents from Cambodia to Zambia, researching the intricate forces that shape societies. But she wanted to do more than observe systems, she wanted to shape them. So today, as Broadhead's Chief Strategy Officer, she guides brands through complexity, helping them transform industries from food and agriculture to sustainability and social impact. Please help me welcome Emily to the stage.
Hello, I'm not quite so tall. So I'm going to talk to you today about culture change at Broadhead, our agency in Minneapolis, Delafield, and North Carolina, accelerating creativity. So with the advent of AI, we're really finding a way to change the culture of our agency to be one of more creativity and speed. So this is what it often feels like when you are responding to some client demands. You can see here that many of the images made in our presentation are from our proprietary tool, which I will talk about. But we often feel like we are in a vice. We operate in a business of competing forces, which even if you are not in client service, as I am, you probably can relate. Deadlines, content, move it faster, make it cheaper, all of the things that are really putting pressure on our complex world these days. And when it comes to agency work, a lot of this comes down to the admin. So scopes, briefs, meeting notes, timelines, it goes on and on and on, right? And this is the stuff that we don't necessarily love to do, and it's the stuff that our clients don't necessarily care that much about or really want to pay very much for. So the question for us was then, why AI, and what is it going to do for us to help us transform our culture? And as I was saying, not everything we do deserves the time it takes. So some of those tasks take a really long time, and we would much rather spend time on what we talk about as the magic. We would much rather spend time on doing other things within our business. I'm in the strategy group. I also oversee media and data science analytics. Data cleansing takes so much time, and it's really not the interesting or fun part of the process. So we partnered with OpenAI after doing a lot of research on the various platforms a year and a half ago as to what was emerging as something that could be a bit more full service for us. And we developed what we now call Butter. So we have a proprietary internal system. It is a OpenAI powered enterprise platform. So anything that we put into our version, our Butter, stays within our four walls. Our client data is safe. Our personal information does not train the OpenAI models. And I'll talk a little bit more about training in just a moment. But you'll also know we named it Butter because everything's better with Butter. Butter wrote its own theme song. It's very good. And we chose this name for a couple of reasons. One is that it's genderless, and two is that it's not personified. We didn't name it a person's name or an animal's name. We named it after a more kind of abstract concept that would remind us that we are not talking to a person. We are talking to a computer or a system. So as I said, we're over a year in. If you follow us on LinkedIn, Broadhead, you will see that we have been celebrating Butter's birthday. So even though it's not a person, we're still celebrating Butter's birthday. And we are talking a lot about what 1 year has taught us. And I'm going to let some of my colleagues speak for themselves in this way.
When I'm in meetings, client or internal, I have my stream of consciousness notes. I dump that into Butter and then it kicks back out really organized and detailed notes.
It saves me hours of work of going through each proposal, and it gets me to that final plan way quicker than I've ever been able to in the past.
It really takes the legwork out of analyzing a big data set, turning a 2+ hour task into something that takes me maybe 10 minutes.
It gives me a ginormous head start in terms of writing R scripts, Python scripts, scripts, and just general Excel code as well.
I use Butter every day, from scheduling to budgeting to flagging potential production concerns.
The thing about creative is you got to get through a lot of bad ideas sometimes before you can get to a good idea.
Going from what's in my head, from my little sketches, to something tangible, I think is really cool, and it's kind of unbelievable.
It's really good when I'm at the end of my rope and can't figure out what to dig into next, of saying, here's a bunch of suggestions for you.
Working in social media can be impossible to stay on top of all the ever-changing updates to the platforms and algorithms. So I use my friend Butter on a daily basis for them to tell me what I need to know that may impact our clients.
Butter can take the first step, get you halfway to the goalpost before you even begin.
It gives me a lot more time to be able to do deeper thinking, bigger thinking, just do things that are related to my craft rather than related to a to-do list.
So I'm going to give a couple more examples of some of the things that we're using Butter to help us accomplish. And one of my favorites, I'm an anthropologist by training, and so I love to talk to people, do qualitative research, really think about personas and segmentation. And we're developing dynamic personas. So one of the things I mentioned earlier was this idea of training, and that for us, we realized very quickly, especially within an agricultural audience, we needed to train Butter. We needed to train our GPTs to kind of combat some of the bias that we were finding. We actually had a whole campaign called AI Doesn't Know Ag at the very beginning of using Butter, because we were really finding that it was biased in terms of what it could research on the internet. And obviously that reflects bias in our culture, because what's on the internet or what's in those trained models is only reflective of what's in the media. So we wanted to make sure that we were building models and these personas that were devoid of that bias. So we can do simple things like asking Butter to tell me about a specific person's life. Can you give me a day in the life of a dairy farm owner? Now, again, we're historically an agriculture communications firm, so our people that work for us know a lot about agriculture, but Butter didn't know a lot yet. And so we had to train Butter to be able to be that great counterpart, that great cognitive extension for us, so that it would know agriculture and farmers and producers a little bit better. At the same time, it does have amazing outputs in terms of what the timestamps might be, or some examples, or some creative inspiration that maybe we hadn't thought of. It does it very quickly. We can give it, as Eric was talking about, great prompts as to what we want to see in that day of the life, and then we can pass this to our creative teams who may not know the audience as well as our strategists or account service folks. So it's really good in terms of training Butter and also training our people. We also can generate images, again, for a creative mind. These are the types of things that really help in a briefing. And we can really start to analyze and use our brains, again, use AI as a cognitive extension of what we already know. I actually have a custom GPT called Hitchbot, my last name, and it knows my writing style. I've put in different kinds of content that I'm really familiar with in terms of social theory. I put in all the things I've written out in terms of blogs and other types of creative writing or published writing that I've done. And then I can go back and forth with my Hitchbot to say, okay, so what are we finding here? What's going on with these different insights? What's going on with this data? And analyze it the way that I might. And does AI truly know farmers? Well, again, as I said, we need to start to train Butter to learn more about the differences, the nuances, the different types of segmentation. And so we have trained it on the differences between different types of dairy farmers, or between dairy producers and cattle producers, between row crop farmers or mixed crop farmers and folks who have orchards. So we're really starting to get into those nuances, and we're actually partnering with MRI. We are a subscribed partner with MRI, and we've developed some custom GPTs that are going to be able to know what to do with an MRI data haul to help us create those dynamic personas. So it can be like you're talking to one of those producers. We can ask it if it likes our creative work. We can ask it if the tagline or the positioning that we're coming up with needs a little refinement. How might they react? So it gives us, now, again, anthropologist, I'm going to go on and do this in a focus group or actually go to talk to people. But in terms of quickness and in terms of getting a gut check, some of those things are becoming really, really useful for us, again, in that culture of speed. So one of the biggest learnings that we've had over the course of the last year is that AI is really great if you have taught it to be so. So just a couple more quick examples. I have about 3 minutes. So I'm just going to go through a couple quick examples. And as I said, we wanted to get to the magic faster. So this is one of our favorite memes. I want AI to do my laundry and dishes so that I can do the art and the writing, right? So we think of our laundry and dishes as all of that admin work. Image resizing, interview transcripts, our employee handbook, so that if someone needs asks a question about their PTO or about their health insurance plan or something else, they don't have to inundate our HR office with these questions. Our Butter, our Broadhead GPT can help them find the answer within our policies. We can look for a lot of different types of industry trends, and we actually have an Outlook visual assistant that helps us with scheduling meetings. We have just a ton of timesheets that gets automated. We have some billing work that's being automated. We're really using Butter across every aspect of the business outside of just what it can do on a creative or strategic front. As I said, I have created a custom GPT called HitchBot. I actually have about 6 or 7 custom GPTs. One of the other ones that I have is called CheckOffBot, because some of those regulations and rules are really complicated. And so we have a CheckOffBot. We have a government RFP bot that helps us to kind of wade through some of those long, tiny print RFPs. And we've gamified it within the agency. So again, how do you integrate this into an organization? We created Butter Tank. We had a weekly competition for everyone within the agency to see what new use cases they were coming up with for Butter, and then they would win a prize once the agency voted on who had the best Butter Tank. Similar to one of the things that Eric showed, this is an example of a privacy policy, and we had a client that wanted us to update this privacy policy to match new regulations within the EU, given a lot of the governmental changes that happen internationally. And we used Butter to help us, or to review this policy, review it and compare it to a current policy, and then give us a marked up version. And our digital producer believes it saved them between 4 and 5 hours of work. Obviously, then we took it to a lawyer and had them review all of that. But we were able to do that first draft that may have taken, I would guess it would have taken longer than 5 hours, but she's really good. And was just, again, that culture of speed. So these are just a few examples of what Butter has done for us. I think the other thing is to think about is, I think about Butter as my superpower. I think about it as another cognitive extension for myself. Because I have been in the industry so long, I know exactly what to ask it. So we're doing a Butter AI University for all of our interns and for all of our new staff. And we're self-reporting 5 to 20% gains in productivity in the first year. I think that's only going to grow. It makes us more competitive in business sprint opportunities, like I said, new business in particular, but also when clients have quick fixes that they want right away or quick projects. I'm almost done. And it created believers in the potential of AI across the agency. So we really started the year with a lot of folks feeling scared and skeptical, unsure of what it meant for their job. And now we really feel as though these are all self-reported. We did a survey at the beginning and a survey a year in, and folks really now feel empowered and grateful that they are on the cutting edge of how to use this technology to make them better and more capable in their own jobs. So if you want to accelerate creativity, get to the magic quicker, and AI is a great tool in order to do so.
Thank you, Emily. At this time, I'd like to open it up to questions from the audience. And so I think we should have 2 mics roaming around, and our first one's right up front, so I'll pass my mic over.
We've got a lot of teachers and students in the audience, and I'm just wondering, what is your recommendation for to those instructors and to the students in terms of preparing for a job with your companies?
Okay. Test. Okay. Just use it, right? And find the ways that make you more efficient. Stay on top of the technology. It changes. It's getting better with every month. So I think people coming in, to work at Farm Progress, if they aren't engaged in AI, they're just not going to get very far, right? I mean, that's one of the questions we ask, like, what have you done with AI? It's one of those things that can set somebody apart.
I would have a very similar answer. Again, we're creating custom GPTs. We're now starting to teach folks to code. AI is also coding, so we're building apps and tools of our own that use AI. We have an intern training program, Butter University, as I mentioned. And I would also say that it is about for me anyway, it's about the balance of the technology and your own brain. So AI is not going to take your job, but somebody that knows how to use it sure might. And work with, not against. Find the ways that it makes sense for you. When we first started, we said, hey, use this personally. Like, make a road trip itinerary. Ask it for recipes of what you've got in your fridge. Have it help you with your household chores. Again, this was a year ago, but it really, start by starting. You learn every time you prompt it. You learn how to prompt it better. You don't have to be building custom GPTs for AI to really, again, become a superpower in the way that you want it to be.
Can you hear me? Okay. The first part is, how do you ensure data sovereignty? And the second part is, how do you justify the environmental impacts of using so much AI?
So for the sovereignty, our version of AI is completely in-house. It's protected from any other, no one can get into it. It's protected, it's firewalled, essentially. And then from the environmental impacts, we actually just had a call with our CEO last week. That question was asked. I think it's a work in progress. I mean, it's definitely a problem, right? These things take a lot of energy. I think as we're figuring out AI, I think that's a big part of, figuring out how to limit the ecological impact.
I'm very hopeful that using AI will help us learn how to use less energy with AI and other human and social problems, environmental problems around the world. So to me, I would love to be an optimist that we're going to be able to solve some of those issues. Similarly with the sovereignty issue, we have an enterprise system, and so we have firewalls as well. I will also say that we have some clients who have a mandate for us to use AI, and we have some clients that have a mandate that we must not use AI, and everything in between. So we have started to write our master services agreements very differently. We have started to talk about which data and when. We have trained our entire agency on copyright training and on data privacy issues. We do a training every year, and we have new employees go through those. So we're taking the data privacy and just our clients' information and their security very, very seriously, but there are tools in place for us to do so.
So I also have sort of a two-part question. I know a while back I'd heard that AI is not very good at data analysis yet, and then you guys talked about some of that. So what is the best way, or do you have any recommendations on how to keep up with what is AI doing well these days? It's obviously constantly changing, places or ways to keep up.
Yeah, you have to check your data. I mean, as wonderful as it is, and it can make you much faster, again, trust but verify, right? Go find the source data, and especially if it's like something that's the key to your report that you're trying to write, you need to go back in and dig into that data, because yeah, it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination.
I'll try the second part of the question in terms of how do you keep up. I definitely read a couple of newsletters that come out every week. I have found I'm not an expert on AI. I love it, obviously, but I have found the folks who are the ones keeping up, and there are a lot of, I don't know how many of y'all are Substackers, but there's a lot on Substack, and there is a lot even in places like Wired or Consumer Reports. So there are very smart people that are already doing the work of keeping up for you. So find a couple of folks whose writing you actually enjoy reading that doesn't look like it's completely generated by AI with bullets and emojis, and start following them. And again, start by starting. I read headlines every day, and you kind of get into the rhythm of what's real and what isn't when it comes to those technological innovations.
Yeah, I read the Nieman Labs, which is the Harvard newsletter for journalism, and they are really on top of AI and have a lot of really interesting articles on it.
We are over our time, but I also really appreciate these two being here with us today. I'm going to take one more question from the audience, and then we're going to move to our next panel. So I see a gentleman right here.
What discourse do you think needs to happen in agricultural journalism for using AI? Because there's companies, perhaps like yourself, that do use it, and there's publications that refuse to as well. So what kind of discourse and conversations need to happen in this room regarding AI ethics in journalism?
Well, I mean, I think there needs to be a cohesive ethics agreement, right, about what and how we use AI. I mean, I think having a universal agreement among agriculture journalists, or really all journalists, but in this room, the agriculture journalists, I think that would go a long way to helping everyone be on the same page, and then we can make that statement to the broader audience.
What he said.
Perfect. Well, please help me give a round of applause to Eric and Emily and thank them for joining us here today. Really appreciate it. Thank you. One of the things that we've received questions about is photos. So Chuck Zimmerman's been roaming around taking lots and lots of photos, and I know people have asked him how they can get access. So if you're interested in seeing the pictures that Chuck is taking, go to agnewswire.com. He's got a story on there, Ag Media Summit. Click and open that story, and then there's a link to the Flickr album. There you'll be able to see all of his images from the show. So.